And action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly, episode 187. We're closing fast to 200. It is 14th of November, 2022. Or what was it, 675th of March, 2020.
2020,
Just
yes.
kidding. In the PnP Weekly, we always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365, and we have visitors. We talk about their careers and development, or depending on what they do, what's the background. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a product manager in Microsoft 365 ecosystem areas, and with me as a co-host is...
Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I'm Cloud Developer Advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
Hey. Sorry.
It's a mouthful.
Yes. Double action. Now,
one man, one desire.
So today we have a Luis Máñez. He was the chief architect, I think was his title on the interview. We already recorded that. So Luis Máñez from ClearPeople joining us to talk about his day-to-day work and his role in the community and open source contributions. And he's actually working remotely for a US-based company, not UK-based company, UK, US, different thing. You know, somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, close enough. UK-based company from Spain. If you look from south pole, then it's all in the north, and somewhere in the north.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, so let's actually jump on that interview, and we'll get back on the articles right after that. So welcome, Luis Máñez, to the PnP Weekly, episode 187. And good to have you on the show. Now, before we actually go anywhere else, we wanted to double check the pronunciation of your last name, because you said that you've been working for a UK company for 8 years, and the people have been saying that you're Luis Máñez, which is the logical way for UK. But how is it actually done in Spain?
In Spain, it's actually said Máñez.
Máñez. Okay. So
doesn't matter. No worries.
That's a bit of a difficult thing for especially for Finglish to say. So it's maybe understandable. But Luis, let's start with a quick intro. Who are you and what do you do for a living?
Okay. Well, my name is Luis Máñez. I'm based in Spain. I work remotely for a UK company called ClearPeople. And well, my role is Atlas Chief Architect. And what does it mean? My company, it's a product-led company. So we do a product, and we have a product that is called Atlas. And Atlas is a solution built on top of Microsoft 365, and it's a digital workplace solution. So what I do is I'm the technical architect. So I'm responsible for the overall architecture of the product and ensure that all the pieces glue together and work as expected. I'm also do some technical mentoring and this kind of things. And also I'm kind of responsible of the research area here in the company. And that's one of the reasons why I also contribute to all these PnP things, because sometimes I research something and that finally goes to the PnP as a contribution. So that's mainly me in a nutshell. So any other, if I can go into detailing wherever you want, but
yes. And you're also an Office developer MVP, right? So you got the MVP status a few years back because of the contributions on the community. So
yeah, I've been an MVP from 2018, I think.
Yeah,
6 years.
Yeah, that's 4 years or 4 or 5, whatever.
6 years in a row. So it was 16.
What year is it? Isn't it 2020 March? Or what?
It's March 389 of 2020.
Exactly. Now let's start a bit about that work. You said that you work remotely for UK-based company. How is that actually in practice? So are you working from home and you've been doing that for years? Is it a difficult thing to do, or how does that work in practice?
Well, I always say it depends on each person. I mean, for me, for instance, I'm a very introvert person, so it's really, really easy working from home. So I don't have any issue with not meeting face to face every day or taking a coffee on all these kind of things. It's nice when you do it. I agree, but I don't have any issue. I work from home. I have a specific room just for working. This is, I think, important because you need to divide the home and your personal life with your work. But I'm really happy working from home. I was living in the UK in 2013 and then go back to Spain, and since there 2014 I've been working from home, so it's about 8 years, and it's working really fine, also because of the technology. 6 years ago it was a bit more complicated, but nowadays it's actually amazing what you can do just with a connection. So
would it be a fair thing to ask, do you like more being in Spain or in the UK?
It's not fair to ask, Waldek. Yeah, actually that was the reason. I mean, I moved in 2015 because here the Spanish economy was struggling at that moment, so I decided to move to UK and do better projects, bigger projects, also improve my English. I didn't accomplish that one, but I'm still trying.
Well, it's really good. Yeah, all good. Okay.
I'm still trying. So I moved to the UK. I was living in there for a year, and after a year, I was really happy. And actually, I work in UK first for a company called Content and Code. That's the company where Chris O'Brien working there. So it was really awesome to work with Chris and learn from him and so on. But after a year, I said, okay, it's enough for me. I mean, I want to go back to Spain. I miss a lot the family and sunny weather and so on. And actually, the company was okay with me moving and working remotely. And so I did it, and it's actually amazing. After 1 year working remotely, I moved to ClearPeople, also because with Content and Code was a bit hard here in Spain because they don't have a company here in Spain. So for legal reasons and so on, it was a bit hard. And then I moved to ClearPeople, and also really happy of being able to work here in Spain with my family from home and doing great projects for the global market, actually, because we work globally. Actually.
Yeah. So the one thing I'm interested in, right? Because you mentioned you work for a company that has a product. How do you experience yourself the difference between working on projects and working on a product?
Well, yeah, I think it's really different because in the product you have your roadmap and you're attached to it, and you have maybe more time to think about how the thing should be done, and in the customer it's a bit more fast-paced environment if you want. Sometimes in product as well. Also with working with customers, what you have is that you are changing projects quickly, so it's I think you have the experience to do more things maybe because you are doing something and then another thing that is not related at all, and in the product is more everything related with the product and the technology and these kind of things. But actually I'm more happy. I'm happier worker for a product company than for a consultant company.
Yeah, there's a classic advantages in both sides, because you might, depending on a persona and depending on what you like, some people actually prefer the projects because then you come, you do your stuff, then you leave it and you don't need to worry about it, because when you're building a product, well, you need to worry about things as well, but then you have the full control. It's an interesting balance between the products and the projects. They have advantages and disadvantages in both. So
yeah, also with the customer, you are more public facing with the customer itself, and with the product, you are just working with your team, product owner, your dev team, and it's it's different in that side. It depends on the person, but I think, in my opinion, I feel less pressure working with just my team in my company than working with the customer. So
yeah,
it depends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I say, at least in my past, because I worked in, let's say, I worked with projects, then products, then project, then products. So it's kind of a cycle of things to finding the right balance of what you're doing. So, and of course, I guess I'm now working in a product. I guess that's the way of putting that. So yes, because I'm no longer a consultant, recovering one. Now, can we talk a bit about the Atlas, just to understand and offering? It's a digital dashboard or workspace. What does that mean? What does it actually mean for customers?
Well, I'm very bad saying things, to be honest. But well, what we have, it's a digital workplace solution. So we help everyone to work together. We are specialized in knowledge, communication, and these things. So we offer a platform where everyone in the company can work together, find the right information, and also we do a special detail in UX. So we try to offer the best UX possible, and that's what we have. I mean, I don't want to say it that way, but it's kind of an intranet in a box solution. So there's a bunch of custom web parts, SPFx, offering custom functionality. Everything is very people-centric in the way that you can select your preferences, your different offices that you are interested on, the departments, and so on. So all the information is using Share, so everything is tailored for you, and that's really important. And also, it's very easy to contribute because you can create content with just a few clicks, and everything depends in the location of the content. Everything is even kind of auto tag with some specific things. It's very based on taxonomy as well, and that's actually what allows us to tailor the content for you, because everything is tagged somehow. And also very important is that the platform it's using a lot the community work as well. So we offer a provisioning tool as well that is using behind the scenes the provisioning framework from the PnP. Most of our SPFx web parts are using the community controls. So that's the circle. And actually, we had if you are interested, we had a call with Patrick and Bert from Patrick Rogers and Bert Jensen, because it was some kind of case study about real products built using community contributions. So it's really interesting.
There are so many things I want to ask. One, like, what does it mean for you as a vendor who has a product to be able to work from the community and open source in product, and how does that change or influence the way you can build the product and do things?
Well, my point here is that it's after all, it's a win-to-win situation. So you are using work for the community, but you are also contributing to the community, because every time I find an issue with the provisioning, we fix it. Every time I had an improvement, we release it to the community as well. So it's a win-to-win. I'm not very worried about this is community work in a sense that it's gonna fail, because if you build it, it's gonna fail as well, and you're gonna have issues, and that's not a problem for us. So this is my point on here. So
and how about how does it allow you to, in a way, raise the bar, right? Because in other words, you get to use something that is already done, meaning you can spend more time on adding value to customers and solve issues for them, as opposed to really, take a step back and build your own provisioning engine and deploy. Like, do things that are not related to the problem you solve, but kind of you need because of the way things work, right? So how does that allow you to take this additional leap with, well, building more things and offering the customers a richer solution because you have this layer upon which you can build?
Yeah, but what's the question exactly? Well, because
so how does that allow you? So what are the things that it enables you to do because you can build on top of the baseline as opposed to have to build everything by yourself?
Or let's actually rephrase the question in a way that now open source and community is building provisioning and this property controls and React controls, and now wouldn't that then mean that you're not building them and you cannot invoice the customer at that work? So is it actually beneficial for you to use those tools or not?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the point that I was saying. Before building anything, let's see if there's something in the community.
Yeah.
And obviously we evaluate the solution and we test it and we do all the quality assurance that we need. But after that, if it works for us, it's work that we don't need to do because it's already done. So let's focus on any other feature, any other problem that we want to solve. But actually, we have a very solid base and there are hundreds of developers contributing. So it's silly if you don't take it, in my point, obviously. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a really good example is for sure the provisioning. So because whenever the provisioning thing was initially created, there was quite a few different provisioning solutions in the community. But then I would say that it was actually a good thing. Provisioning should be a baseline service. It should be. The provisioning itself does not provide value. What you provision provides value. So having the baseline provisioning technology is like, well, I can't sell that, but I can sell whatever I build on top of it. So and that's the differentiator between customers. But it's been highly successful for sure. So which is really, really cool. Now, Waldek, you were about to ask a question.
Yes, so, I wanted to ask another thing. So I want to change gears a little bit. If you look back at Alt365 and People's First, like we've came a long way from there. Like SharePoint, Microsoft 365 evolved a lot, like with the modern UI and Viva and Teams and all of that. How do you see digital workplaces evolve over the last 6-10 years? And how does that translate that to the product you build and problems you solve in there?
Wow.
Big question.
What a question. What a question. Well, I think it has evolved a lot. I mean, at the beginning, we just had a platform where you can just drop your documents and that was all. And now there's a lot of things. Actually, the UX, for instance, in the beginning was terrible, and now the UX in Microsoft Produce is much better, and it has evolved a lot. I mean, it's almost impossible to answer that question. It's been like 15 years of progressing, and yeah, also currently with all these artificial intelligence thing and Microsoft syntax and the information that is giving you syntax it's amazing. It's able to understand your documents and actually bringing you the information that you want to see, and it's really impressive. So it has evolved a lot. It's really hard to focus on something.
Now, related on that question, and these are kind of a thrilling question, so I do apologize on that, but it's actually kind of interesting to also hear your opinion. So at the same time, of course, the baseline platform is evolving. So Microsoft 365 has new features and capabilities, and Microsoft is investing. Microsoft Syntax is a great example. Is there still room for partners? Is that still a thing from your perspective?
That's a question. I mean, I think there's going to be always room for partners because it's impossible to cover absolutely everything. But to be honest, from years ago, I'm somehow having the feeling that it's really hard to find that niche or that hole and cover it, because Microsoft is going super fast with features, and currently you can build something good, and after 6 months it's gonna be out of the box in Microsoft product. So it's not being easy, and obviously you need first to be the first one in place, and being very good finding the thing to cover, because otherwise it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Yeah. So in Atlas, what we do is we leverage the entire Microsoft 365 platform, but with in our opinion a bit more better UX, and solving specific small things that are gonna save you maybe 5 minutes a day. But that's gonna save you 5 minutes a day, and for all the workers in the company and all the days in a year, that's gonna be a lot. So this is what we're trying to do. But it's true that it's not easy. That 10 years ago was much more easier for partners. I remember Nintex. Nintex have a workflow solution, and for years are gonna be dominating the workflow thing. But now it's not that easy for them, because Microsoft already covers somehow, and with all these Power Apps and these local solutions. So yeah, it's being harder to be a partner nowadays, I think. But yeah.
It's an interesting challenge for sure for a lot of partners, and also for us inside of Microsoft, trying to figure out how do we position things. But of course, from a partner perspective, the key is also focus on you said specific niche, but for industry-specific solutions and all of that, exactly, which Microsoft typically does not do. So we do generic stuff, and then it's all about how do you package those to be an offering. Exactly. And then the community stuff, of course, helps, which is good. Now, you've been working on SharePoint framework for a while, and the recent sample, which we actually shared last week, was about Kiota in SharePoint framework, which is interesting. Can you kind of elaborate? What is Kiota? What does that mean? That's a city in Japan, or?
No, not really. And there's a funny story. When I was preparing the presentation for that session, I searched Kiota on Google, and seeing there's a small village in Nigeria or something in Africa that is called Kiota. And actually I was in touch with a couple of person of the Kiota team, and I actually asked them about if Kiota was related with that region, because I think there's some people from the SDK, from the SDK team that are working in Africa, and I was trying to that. But I asked Bibi, one of the girls in the Kiota team, and he said, no, that's a Swahili word that means nest, I think, and the author seems it was Darrell Miller from the graph team. So that's why Kiota. Kiota, it's a command line tool that allow us to create a client, an SDK, call it wherever, to consume any API that is described using OpenAPI. So you have your custom API, you have Graph API, any other API in any technology that is described using OpenAPI, and with just a command line, you can generate code in different languages, C#, TypeScript, Java, PHP. There's a bunch of languages supported at this point, and I think they are working in adding even more languages, and it generates code to consume that API. So for us, it's really awesome, because as part of Atlas, we have an API, and some of the things that we offer, it's a .NET API, and then we also had the need of generate an SDK for our customers, because we already have some customers that are saying, okay, we want to consume your API for our custom solutions, integration, and so on. We said, okay. And at the first, we just sent some samples about you can consume our API with this code in C# or TypeScript or whatever. And that was okay, but obviously, if you have an SDK and in different languages, in .NET, TypeScript, that SDK works in a similar way. So you that client.resource.getAsync, and you are getting the content. Everything is much easier to learn about it. And this is the problem that Microsoft is actually solving with Kiota for themselves in the Graph API. Because you can imagine Graph, it's a huge API, and you need to maintain SDKs in .NET, in TypeScript, in PowerShell, blah, blah, blah. So that tool is really helping, and I know they are using already Kiota, at least for the beta SDKs. So it's something that is working very well, that is fixing Microsoft problem with Graph API. So if it's working for Microsoft and Graph API, it's going to work for your API for sure. So it's really impressed, and it's working very, very well. And we are, at this point, I'm just playing with it, but at some point it's going to be a part of our dev tool for generate SDKs for our own APIs in our product. So that's the idea, and I'm really happy with the tool, and also got a lot of help from the Microsoft team as well. So super happy.
That's Vincent Birre and Darrell Miller and of course the Nigeria team as well. So it's help always available for help, which is great. So
absolutely.
Now on your let's talk a bit about the community side. We actually chatted about this one as there were some technical issues with Waldek to join, but hardware issues, not software issues, never. But you've been also actively coordinating some of the community meetups and used to be SharePoint Saturdays, and now they're collab days or community days or whatever. Can you talk a bit about that work? Why are you doing that? What's the additional value? Why would you do that?
Why? I don't know why. But anyway,
But you said that you're an introvert. Why do you set up the events to meet people?
I don't know. Because you can find me in the events in a corner, just looking at sailing. So I don't know why I'm doing it. But yeah, I'm with other persons trying to arrange the next collab days in Madrid. And well, we don't know if how it's gonna work, because nowadays people are not responding as well as we think in the past they did. But yeah, trying to arrange the event, and I don't know why, but I'm doing it. So no, I'm just trying to help. I mean, I'm really introvert, but I love community as well. So I'm always willing to help. There's a great team around the community here in Spain, arranging different events, especially in Madrid and Barcelona, because are the two main cities here in Spain. So it's where more people work with Microsoft technology. So yeah, I'm trying to help with the event. Yeah.
And you had the Barcelona collab days pretty recently as well, because I think I saw that in social media as well. So which is great. But it's those events are really awesome to get people in the same room, and then they're typically free, or maybe there's a super small fee as to cover the venue, and then helping other people to learn about the technology. So, but like I said, it's interesting to see the dynamics, what the pandemic situation caused, and then hybrid versus in-person versus online, and how the dynamics has changed comparing 5 years ago, because it was completely different 5 years ago.
Absolutely, it's completely different. Actually, we had the Barcelona event a month ago or so, and it was just about 80 people, when in the past you can gather easily 150 or even 200 in the event. We're trying to find the best.
Do you know why? So is it like the old folks or folks who in the past used to attend these events in person, they moved to other jobs and there's no influx of new folks? Or is it basically people are unwilling to go to an event in person? So do you have an idea why there is
that's the problem, that we don't know why, and all the different communities that are arranging events and so on we are all also asking why. I mean, what's the difference? I think the pandemic obviously changed everything, and people is still I don't want to gather with a lot of people yet. Everything has been very recent with all this pandemic thing. I think that's one of the reasons, but I don't know if that's enough.
And something what we chatted before we started recording ourselves, that maybe the pandemic situation also changed the dynamics with the weekend. So the meaning of a weekend is much more on the family and much more on the prioritization of your time away from work. Rather so, because we used to have SharePoint Saturdays and Microsoft 365 Saturdays and all of that, and they were always on Saturday. Now, as we get, for example, in the people who are in this call, we get a bit older, the family is more important, the pandemic reminds on the value of soft skills and and the family values. Then that drives the mental mindset where you prioritize the weekends for other things rather than technology. So
I think that's another reason, and a very important one, of course. People is less willing now to spend a Saturday in an event learning about SharePoint or whatever, instead of going out with family or something like that, because of all this post-pandemic mental thing. So but actually we are open to learn and to change things, and actually this is something as well for you guys at Microsoft. I mean, we don't know how to do it better. And that's the thing. We don't know how to do it better. We are we had a past meeting 2 weeks ago or something about the collab days in Madrid, and we don't know how to do it better. And we are trying to find the formula to make the people coming back to the event, but we don't know how to do it better. Honestly,
I think even in Microsoft, we need to get a bit more learnings on the situation, and because if we think about Ignite 2022 Ignite, which was a few weeks back, it was partly in person in Seattle, partly online, partly hybrid, and that feedback on the event it has been mixed, because it's like, well, if it's all available online, why would I be then in person unless there's some additional value? And then it gets complicated. If you're online or hybrid, then you are being inclusive and everybody can access the things, but then it changes the dynamics versus flying 25,000 people to Orlando for an in-person conference like we did few years back. So it's interesting to see where we will be within a few years and what works and what doesn't work. So. And maybe the economical financial situation doesn't help either, because even on having a Friday day off to go to a community event, it's like, well, but that's 8 hours away from the day-to-day work. So
and even more here in Spain, because if you are based in Madrid, it's fine. But if you need to move from other cities, then the event is expensive for you.
Yes, exactly.
Even if being free.
Yeah, it's always combination of things, right? Because like you could always say like, well, yes, it is expensive, but on the other hand, like some companies use it to recruit new employees. Some people learn it to learn, right? So there are different ways really to go about it. And I think it will be interesting to crack the mystery of it. Like, why has it changed? And do we kind of need new format that is more in line with the current economy, state of mind, where people are, what people need, the way we want to learn, maybe there's age thing, I don't know, right? So it will be interesting to learn what is the critical thing behind that we miss, and what is the modern or the current way to address that.
Yeah, sure. And also there's another point in my opinion, that today there's a lot of documentation of ways to learn if you want. I mean, you open Microsoft Learn and you're going to have a bunch of videos from you guys, advocates, explaining how to do things and these kind of things. And there's not maybe that great difference in attending an event when a guy is going to tell you something that I've been learning from Waldek. So maybe that's another point. There's
right.
Saying it in a good way, maybe there's too much documentation and too much content for learning. So maybe 5 years ago was much more interesting being in an event with 20 speakers talking about something that there's no other way to learn from.
True.
Right.
True.
Nowadays, there's much more ways for self-training, for learning new things. So maybe that's also a difference. I don't know.
True.
Exactly, right. And I guess that will also play back to what we discussed is what is the role of an event, right? Is it only the aspect of it is only to learn, or is it also, you know, like meet other folks, socialize, network, and do this kind of, and maybe there's like the learning part, maybe that is where we shift away from learning being the biggest part and we move more towards network or community side of it, that is really the main track. And then for those who want to learn, there are a few things aside too, right? So kind of flip things around.
Agree, completely agree. But the thing is that all the networking stuff is being exactly the same 3 years ago that today. And people is not attending the event in person.
Sure.
Even they have all this networking thing, and there's company trying to hire people and attract talent. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting how it's gonna be working in the next year. Because maybe it's just something, in my opinion, maybe it's just something a time thing. Next year, people is gonna be able to. It's gonna be willing again to attend an event in person just because everything is working better. We have a better work. Please.
Next year,
we're still trying to be better.
Right? Yeah.
So
We're
still trying to learn the new ways of getting back to this not old way of doing things, but after pandemic
new
situation.
Way to get the old way of doing things. Yes.
Yes. That's a great slogan. That is a great. And one more question from my side, and I guess we're starting to run out of time as well. So now, Luis, you're also an MVP, and like you said, you've been a while an MVP. Can you do kind of let's say 3 tips for anybody who's like, yeah, I want to be an MVP as well? What would
when I grow up, I want to be an
how would people come to be you? So what would be those any tips for anybody who's watching the show or listening?
I'm really bad giving advices, but I think that the most important one is that make it because you like it. I mean, if you don't like it, if you just want the recognitions because whatever, it's fine if you want the recognition because it's nice being an MVP. Also, I wanted to be an MVP a long time ago, just because they gave me the opportunity to fly to Redmond and see the headquarters of Microsoft. That was my wish. That's the only thing that I wanted to do, and see the offices and all these cool things in the headquarters of Microsoft. So do it because you like it, and don't be too obsessed for being an MVP, because it's something is gonna happen if you are constant. The other point is you need to be constant. This is not just about going into a couple of events, writing a couple of posts, and boom, you are already an MVP. This is a long way, to be honest. So you need to be constant. So better if you really like it, because otherwise it's gonna be a pain for you, and will happen eventually if you do it. So that's all.
That's a good tip. Now let's do a quick final rounds of anything interesting happening this week. Luis, what are you working on?
Well,
not anything under NDA, but anything interesting on your team?
Now in the community side. Well, first there's a pull request already merged, I think, about my last sample in the PnP web parse. It's been really funny working with the DALI API to generate images. It's really impressed. And a bit scared, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, that was the auto generating of the images, and then you had the Kiota sample as well, pretty recently.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, the Kiota one and the image generator with the DALI API. And also this Friday is gonna be in Madrid. I'm gonna be in Madrid, talking about Kiota again. So yeah, that's what I have this for this weekend.
Cool.
So really exciting because I haven't been in Madrid for a while, so it's gonna be exciting. It's a NetCore conference, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not about specifically about SharePoint or Microsoft 365. It's about NetCore, but there's gonna be a lot about Graph API and Azure AD authentication and all these cool things. So. That's what I have for this weekend, funny weekend.
Cool.
Yeah. Now I have to actually, before we go forward, you're going to Madrid. Where are you actually based in? You're around Madrid or?
No, I'm in Valencia, in the east of Spain.
Yeah.
So it's about 300 kilometers
south from Barcelona.
From Madrid, south from Barcelona, and the east of Spain in Valencia. It's a very nice city, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also, in my opinion, it's perfect for me because it's not big enough as Madrid, but we have everything that you need in Valencia. So also, I live in a small town very close to Valencia city. So again, same thing. If I want theater or whatever, I just grab the car and in 20 minutes I'm in Valencia. But I don't have all the big city drawbacks here in this small town in Sagunto. So yeah,
nice.
They did used to drive Formula One there a few years back, so I remember this. So anyway,
yeah. Was there?
And Alonso even won, so which was good. Anyway, so
the things you learn on the show.
Yes. Waldek, anything interesting on your?
Yeah. Also, as people are listening to this, I co-presented at a Microsoft Graph 30 days of Graph on Monday. So there is that. We talked about building one of the scenarios that we have for Graph, which is reminding people to get a break, right? So we built this really cool app that like keeps track of your presence, your work, and if you are online or available for too long of a time, the app reminds me like, hey, take a break, right? So we talked about this on Monday. And then other than that, we're working with a few folks on releasing a really early version of a new cool tool that we hope will help everybody work with the Microsoft Graph. So stay tuned. It's just like a few weeks away, and we're wrapping like trying to like cross the last T's, dot the last I's. So it's coming really soon. It will be publicly available. The version is really early, but we hope that already in what we have now is going to be a huge help for everybody who works with the Microsoft Graph. So stay tuned on that. And other than that, business as usual. Oh, right. Almost forgot. On Thursday, we are celebrating the 5th birthday of CLI for Microsoft 365. It's going to be during a European morning, so we will not be able to get everybody on a call. But if you are around and you want to have a nice time, maybe with a few laughs with a few folks, join us. You will find more info in the Discord channel of CLI. Other than that, business as usual. We keep building new content for Microsoft 365, helping everybody build cool apps, and we keep releasing my CLI for Microsoft 365.
And you're helping with few samples on ESPC and building SPFx solution with Productivity Hub and a lot of other stuff as well. It's not like you have a list of things that goes forward. On my side, 1.16 for SharePoint Framework goes GA actually on the day that this podcast is being released. That's the plan. So with the score. So some new features, some new preview features. Unfortunately, some of the features which we're planning to actually release has to go in the beta status. So because of before we can lock down all of the interfaces. So there's small changes on that, but that's going to happen on most likely on 15th of November, so which is the day when this podcast and the video is out. But and that means, by the way, that CLI will have a new version, which will then support upgrading of the latest version, isn't it? Yes, it is.
That's how we roll. Yes. However,
that's how we roll.
So that comes with a new with a little asterisk. So the next version that we will ship is V6. Meaning we're breaking stuff. We're in that time of year where we take some time to clean things up and break things, which is why we will not release it earlier. So if you want to be able to upgrade your SharePoint framework project to version 1.16 for 2 weeks for the end of November, you will need to use the beta version of CLI.
Yeah. But anyway, from a timing perspective, it is time to close. Thank you, Luis. It's a really, really cool discussion. Good to catch up as well. And you were kind of worried about not learning English. Your accent is really good. You're talking really, really. That's just.
Thank you very much.
This is Finglish as well, so don't worry about it. The key is just to keep on talking. So, thank you, Luis, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll jump on the articles right after this. And excellent. Thank you, Luis, on the great discussion. Good to catch up as well. It's been a while since we last time met. Hopefully, by the way, we didn't talk about the ESPC event. So I think ESPC is the next big thing when community comes together in Copenhagen in the last week of November. That's in a few weeks. That means that I need to start creating my presentations. No, just kidding. Anyway, so...
Presentation, okay. What's that? What is a presentation?
Yeah, what is it? Cool. Let's actually jump on this week's articles. Not a massive amount of content to cover, but that's all good. Seems to be a bit slower set of news from a Microsoft side, especially. English is so hard. Waldek.
Yes.
Now let's start with the PnP Core SDK. So 1.8 of PnP Core SDK is out, and this is a blog post from Bert Jansen. Talks about what's happening in the PnP Core SDK and all of the new added goodies there. PnP Core SDK is a wrapper on top of SharePoint REST APIs, SharePoint CSM API, and a Graph APIs. So it basically abstracts the underlying surface, makes it easier to then just hit the information, and then behind of the scenes the engine accesses that in the most efficient way, either using Graph or CSM or REST, which is actually, it's a really nice wrapper, and it's super widely used worldwide. So usage is growing super widely. And there's a lot of contributors from the community on that as well. So thank you, everybody, for being part of the group. Now, the second article from the PnP platform community blog is from Natalie Lender.
Yes, and it's about working with adaptive cards as dynamic data. And that is an interesting article talking about adaptive cards and how you can use them in solutions that you build. And I guess that the point is being that you are updating the data in a card with additional actions. Is that the that the TLDR?
Yes, that is the DLDR.
TLDR, too long, didn't read. But you should definitely read it.
Monday is hard, but yeah. So and then you can able to collect the data, collect the information directly from the adaptive card. So, and I love the fact that you can actually do this relatively easily. So from the Power Platform, you can post the cards and then collect the information from end users, and then it's really cool setup.
Yeah, and also like the whole fact that you don't need to build like fully fledged app deploying to Azure. You can complete many business scenarios with Power Automate flows and directly in Teams. And probably, so I wonder, because like in this article, we only talk about Power Automate and Teams, but I wonder if you could, because adaptive cards also show up in other locations as well, like Outlook. So I wonder if you could be able to do the same thing there too, or is it kind of different because adaptive card in there like is attached to email and there's no way to post to the same card that is already in an email. So I wonder if that would work in other locations as well, or is it only applicable really to Teams where you have that connection to adaptive cards and to your card? Yeah.
And I think you can do this in Outlook as well, but somebody needs to confirm that and say maybe in the blog post comments or somewhere that, of course, you should know that. But I'm like 99% sure that you can do this in Outlook. Well, the experience is at least the same. Is it exactly the same setup? That's a different discussion.
Yeah,
but you can actually send the cards and collect
information. Oh, yeah,
easily.
Totally.
So.
Cool.
Now, Peter Venstra had a blog post related to sort an array by dates in Power Automate. So basically, it could, again, this summary kind of a tips blog post from Peter related on how would I do a certain thing. So here we have the dates and how do we sort them in a certain order. So really, really cool scenario from him. Typical requirements, how to do sorting for sure. Then there was a article from Amech Ayub.
Exactly. So there are 16 new independent publisher connectors in October 2022. And the idea is that as people build Power Automate flows or Power Apps, they will need to at some point connect to APIs. And if they don't own the APIs, they can still build a connector and make it available to everybody else to benefit from. This is exactly about this idea of community building connectors to help everybody, to make it easier for everybody else to connect to APIs that you might want to use within Power Automate or Power Apps.
Power Apps, yeah. And it's actually really cool that this is up to the level that it's integrated directly within the product. So the community connectors are visible and exposed directly in Power Platform, which is super, super cool. So I don't have to do any extra things for doing that. And also I need to call out Troy, who's by far the person who contributed the most. He's just adding every single time a new connector. So
that's cool.
So super cool. Really, really cool stuff. Thank you for that. Now, then we had a blog post from Ram Prakash Durmarti. So it's the full name. So it's just a bit of a confusing on that side. But there's a blog post related on generating Word document template using a Power Automate. So taking advantage of the classic Word document creations and templates, and then how would we generate them or automate the creation of them using a Power Automate. So step by step, really nice guidance on feeding content directly within the document. So really, really cool stuff as well. Then we had an announcement from the PnP side.
Exactly, new version 3.9.0 with updated multi-line batch responses, getting cited by resource URL and graph, fixes and improvements. If you use PnP.js, you should definitely have a look at this new version because it might contain some cool new things for you to use in your projects.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Martin Linksko had a new blog post on how to copy views in SharePoint. So this is basically, I have a document library. I have a view in this document library. How would I copy that view to another document library within my deployment? And he has created a nice SharePoint framework, a web part, and an extension to do that. So you can actually fire the extension directly from the document library menus and then copy that to be another in another location. So really, really cool stuff.
And sweet.
And this is a great example of taking also potentially advantage of the tenant-wide deployment of extensions. So you can easily include this kind of menu buttons across the tenant. So you can easily, as long as you define your settings properly in a solution and it's deployed to the tenant app catalog, voila, you have a standardized copy view feature available in all of the document libraries without installing the solution in a site level, which is really, really cool. Then we had a updated Message Center show, episode 261. We're trying to catch up this show, but every single week there seem to be as far as anyway. It's so weird. How did I do that? Anyway, so from Darrell and Daniel, and again, a nice summary of all of the new features and the latest announcements from the teams. Sorry, not teams. Messaging Center. What is Messaging Center? One more time, Waldek. Explain.
It's a place for Microsoft 365 tenant admins where they can see what's coming, what's arriving to their tenants, so that they keep their org up to date. They can prep for what's coming, new features, roll it out, drive adoption, and basically be ahead of it. So not just be able to react to new things appearing, but also know when things are about to come.
Yep, absolutely. Super important thing to catch up if you want to avoid kind of surprises and oh my God, what happened? So, as we had earlier today, there was we're of course dogfooding things in Microsoft, and this morning the teams had to flip all of the buttons again, and you're like, where did it now go? But cool. The next thing is Teams Toolkit. There is a new version. I'll talk about this one. It doesn't really matter who talks, but do you want to talk about? I can. So there's a new version of Teams Toolkit, version 4.1.2, which is the latest version from last week. So the Teams Toolkit is all the time getting more improved and more features available. Now, if you're looking in the changelog, there is a changelog available for all of the different releases and what they did contain, what's available, and all of that. So pretty recently, there was the 4.1 version release with multiple additional things like FX developers can now combine web parts in multi-tab themes with an add feature capabilities and improved single sign-on. And then a weekly releases after that. So really, really cool to see the constant improvements on the Teams Toolkit as well.
Definitely.
Then we had a CLI for Microsoft 365 extension. What is this?
Exactly. So there is an extension built by Adam that simplifies working with CLI for Microsoft 365 in VS Code, right? Yeah. So it offers a number of things like easy access to samples, to docs, to snippets, and whatever, basically making it easier for you to use CLI for Microsoft 365 in VS Code, whether you're building scripts or using it for some other way. Basically, it brings all the info that you might need within the context of your work, your IDE. And there was a new version of that with new features and improvements. So if you use CLI for Microsoft 365, check out this extension because it might significantly improve the way you work with CLI and VS Code.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Then we had a new video from Aki, but this is a nice video on library components with service locator pattern in Viva Connection adaptive card extensions part 2. So basically having a centralized piece of code which can be then used in multiple components built with SPFx and targeting Viva Connection. So nice, cool. nice 29 minutes long video, but explaining nicely the different scenarios. Now, Paulo had a new video as well.
Correct. This time, in episode 230, he is sharing with us some of his guidance around which way to extend Azure AD you would choose when, right? So there are multiple options. There are extension attributes, directory extensions, open extensions, schema extension. When would you use which one? Because each one has their place. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in storing additional info in AAD, check out this 4-minute, 30-second video to learn when to use which one.
Yep, absolutely. And for those who haven't followed, so Paulo has been going through all of those different 4 options in the previous video. So in the weekly videos, he's been going through extension attributes, directory extensions, and all of that. And some of those videos, actually, to be fair, at least for me, because I'm not a super specialist on Azure AD, some of the video titles have been like, isn't this the same video as last week? No. We talked about directory extensions and open extensions and schema extensions. But it was like, okay, what's the difference? And this is then the video which is explaining what is the difference between all of them, when to use what.
Yep.
And then the last one is from Shen Yang, related on paste a screenshot into a SharePoint rich text with Power Apps. And this is actually kind of an interesting scenario on the behavior as you are pasting in. Let me go here as he is taking a screenshot out of Shui. On the different option, what's going to happen as you're pasting in the image directly in a text field, rich text field in Power Apps. So how it's going to be rendered, how it's going to be referenced, what's going to be actually valued and stored within inside of the field. But that's it for this one. Quite slow week, actually. It's surprisingly slow week.
Which is good. Here. So sometimes we're in fast weeks and sometimes we're in slow weeks, and it's perfectly fine.
Yes. And or maybe you are in Microsoft Search weeks, fast weeks. Bad. Good. there was a product called Search, a fast search at some point,
Yes.
maybe, because
Once
it
upon
was
a time.
super fast. Anyway. We already went through what's going to happen this week. I guess that's it for this one. It's good to have you back, by the way, Waldek. We did get feedback on you missing a show, which is
I did.
happen. So
I was down and out. It was brutal. I don't know. I caught something that would seem initially like a cold, then more like a flu, and then I was like still like 1 week in. I was nowhere near being done with this. I was like, I don't know. Happens.
It happens. And
lesson learned, folks. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And flu season is coming. So take those shots and whatever you want to do to avoid your getting sick. But I think that's it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back with the next PnP Weekly within a week. Right, Waldek?
Definitely.
See you in a week. Cheers,
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.